Welcome to all of you here this morning. We're here to remember and to celebrate the life of Travis Cord Cuban, who passed away very suddenly and unexpectedly a week ago Friday, October the 19th. And our sincere condolences, especially to all of you as immediate family, to Heidi and Kendra and Jenna, to Terry and Arlene, to Kobe and Gary and Dane and Cade and the rest of the family as well. We've certainly been praying for each of you a lot over this whole last week, and I know many people here have been doing that in this really difficult time. And certainly for all the rest of us, on behalf of the family, want to thank you for coming and being here with especially the family in this time. My name's Hart Lowen. I'm the pastor of the church that meets here, Vineyard Christian Fellowship or Community Church. I've known Travis actually for over 30 years. And of course, he moved away at some point, but known the Cuban family for that time, and I'm certainly happy to serve all of you here today. Just by way of announcement, as probably most of you already know, there's also going to be another celebration of Travis's life 2 weeks from today at Travis and Heidi's home. And so talk to them in terms of exact directions and time and that kind of stuff. It's also on Facebook, I believe. And there's going to be a Fleetwood Mac tribute band there and a pig roast and all kinds of fun stuff. So please be aware of that. Would you pray with me just as we begin this time today? Father, thank you that we can trust you in all situations, including times like this that are especially difficult. Thank you for the gift of Travis's life to all of us in all different ways. And as we remember him today, I pray that you would really be a strength, especially to the immediate family and to all of us here. I pray that in the middle of grief, I pray that in a way that only you can be, I pray that you would be strength and you would be peace and you would reveal your life to all of us. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm going to ask Terry Cuban to come up at this point, and he's just going to share things from his perspective. Obviously, Dad, in terms of Travis's life and just any other things that Terry would like to share.
Thank you, Hart. I want to thank everybody for your love, your prayers, and your support. It's touched my heart. This is the hardest road that we have ever walked. And we've walked down some pretty tough roads, but this is the hardest. And it's with your love and your support and your prayers and our faith in Jesus Christ that we made it, that we've made it this far. It's been horrendous. This is every parent's nightmare because our children are supposed to bury us. We're not supposed to bury them. Excuse me. Travis was born July 7th, 1971, the first grandchild in our family on both sides. And Travis was a ball. Travis never walked. He never walked in his life. He put his hands up, and he was 9 months old. He put his hands up in the air like this, and he ran. And he fell, and he got up and put his hands back up and ran. And he ran for 47 years. He never stopped. He just kept going. He was an extremist. Some of you remember when he was 6 years old, he got hit by a car. Dr. McMorrin was the doctor, and he was a tough doctor. And so the first thing, we got Travis in there, McMorrin moved his leg. And Travis looked at him and says, "Hey, dummy, you hurt me." And McMorrin and him got on like that. They were just, it was unbelievable. There's a 6-year-old guy and this doctor, and he had the doctor like this. It was just, that was Travis right from the beginning. He put him in a body cast from his toe on his left leg to his armpits, down to his knee on his right leg. Had a hockey stick between the ankle on his left leg and his knee so he couldn't move. Well, there's one good thing about shag carpet. He could grab onto that and drag himself around the house, and that's what he did. He dragged himself up the stairs and down the stairs. And then, lo and behold, he's walking, which isn't totally impossible, but Travis, now you got to remember it's Travis, and he's walking. He walked so much, we come home and he wouldn't be there. So where's Travis? You go outside and follow the white footprints and see whose house he was in. And he was that was him. So I phoned the doctor because he'd walked right through the cast. And the doctor says, that's impossible. Nobody can walk in that. That cast weighs more than him. And I says, well, he's walking. He says, bring him in. So I bring him in, and there's an emergency, and the doctor's operating on helping somebody. So we're sitting in the waiting room for about an hour, and then Dr. McMorrin comes out. And so he says, so you're the guy that's walking in my body cast, eh? You know, I built that so you couldn't. He says, I still don't believe it. So I grabbed him by the top of the cast, and I pulled him up, and I said, okay, Trav, get him. He chased the doctor into the cast room. The doctor's running, looking. He just couldn't believe it. He put a new foot on, and he says, if this kid walks through that foot, he says, as long as his foot doesn't wear out, bring him in when he's finished. He says, I can't believe this. It's not supposed to happen. But with Travis, it did happen. Now, I worked for the city of Penticton, and I didn't work in an office. I worked everywhere in the city of Penticton. And that was Travis's nightmare. One day, he's probably 10, 12, I'm not sure, with a couple of his friends. I think they're here. He's walking down the road from our house with a stiff leg. He's walking like this. So I see him, oh, where are you going, Trav? Oh, we're just going over here. Just going over here. So he comes home later, after work, I come home. So I said, so what gun did you take? He says, what do you mean, what gun? I says, well, what gun did you take out in the bush? Well, I took the .22. I says, I thought it was that one, because the other ones would have been too big. That was Travis. He always lived on the edge. He was an extreme at everything. Travis went a little sideways for 9 years. A little. Which I think I got my gray hair from. Anyways, but it was his nightmare because I caught him so many times when he was supposed to be in school. Oh, boys, pull the truck over, there's Travis. Guys out of the truck both ways, and we grab him, haul him back to school. You know, he just couldn't, he got away with a lot, but the stuff that we caught him at, anyways, we caught him. And that was Travis, it was his life. Skiing. We took up skiing. Some of you remember Al Tweeder was taking a group down, I think it was Juniper, and there was a big cliff. And the three guys, I think they're here, went screaming down the hill past this group trying to learn how to ski, yelling and screaming, we're out of control, we're out of control. And they went off the cliff, and legs and the arms flailing in the air, and everybody thought they were going to be killed. Gone. That's the boys. The tweeter comes up to me later. He says, do you realize what he did? He scared those people so much. Boys will be boys, you know, and that was it. And going hunting with him. He had such a knack of knowing where he was in the bush. I'd say, okay, we're going to go up this hill, and I look over, see something moving on the next hill way over. Glasses out, yeah, that's Travis. He's been up the hill and crossed and on the next mountain. And that was his life. He was always on the next mountain. we were going through another very tough road when Arlene got sick in '94, and Travis came and visited in the hospital. We didn't know if Arlene was going to make it or not. And Travis come in and asked, he wanted to buy his boss out. It was West Van Irrigation. And so Arlene said, you have to talk to your dad. So I talked to him, and we gave him the money. I said, you have to pay us back, Trav. This is your business, and I want you to own it completely. And so by spring, he had paid us back. So he got 75 clients, 2 shovels, and a broken pick. And he's built that into almost 3,000 clients and 22 employees since '94. So that was a worker that Travis was. He worked hard. He worked hard all the time. Most of his employees and a lot of his friends, he picked out of the ditch. Guys going the wrong way, because he'd been there. He knew. He knew. He had people phoning him, would you hire my son? Ken Morrison was his accountant at the time. He phoned Travis, and Travis hired his son. The kid worked one day, and Travis worked him like you wouldn't believe. And the next day he said to his dad, I'm finished. I'm not going back to work. His dad says, do you know Travis? Yeah. If you're not at work, you know where he's going to be, here dragging you to work. He worked that kid, and he says, how do you like working for a living? He says, you got a lot of brains, but how do you like working for a living? Because going down the road you're going, that's the life you're going to have. You're going to be in the ditch digging. The kid now, I believe, is an accountant because he turned around and walked the right way. And that was Travis. He picked up everybody. You know, he just had a knack of doing it. Travis's life totally changed. He went to a thing called Choices, and 2 fantastic things happened to him there. First thing, he met Jesus there, which was awesome. And the most awesome thing, he walked in and he saw this beautiful girl, gorgeous. And he knew that was it. He was done. He was finished. And that's his beautiful wife, Heidi. And Heidi had a life. She had a real unbelievable life of highs, lows. Not everything was smooth. They had their times, but they got through it. They were fighters, and they made it. The last year and a half, when they moved to Peachland, Travis's life totally changed. He became the son that everybody wanted, became the husband that Heidi needed, the father that the twins needed. He was and the friend. He's always been a friend. And he was the friend that everybody wanted. And he was that guy. Him and his sister connected more. She wasn't the lady with the snake oil. She became the doctor. For years, Kobe's into snake oil. But, now she became the doctor that she is. And his life was extreme. They would get in their camper and go skiing in the winter. Now, who takes a camper? Where did you go over to the Kootenays, I think? They went to the Kootenays, not even knowing where they're going. They're just going skiing, and that's what they did, His life was an extreme, outrageous adventure, and he lived it to the fullest. As a dad, I've lost not only a son, a best friend, and an awesome hunting partner. We did a lot of things together. We worked on projects. We hunted. We fished before. We just did everything. We talked on the phone. We saw each other. It was just everything. Malachi 4:6 says, he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to their fathers. And that's what God did, especially in the last year and a half. We had a relationship like you wouldn't believe, and it was awesome. We've had lots of people call and tell us about Travis. Angus is a friend of ours. He walked across Canada with a cross. And he saved a guy's life in Skaha Lake when he walked through Penticton. And this is in the late 80s. He phoned me just after Travis had passed, and he heard, and he was praying for us. And he says, I had an open vision. He says, I saw Travis going up. Then I saw Jesus come down and put his arm around Travis and touch his chest and say, welcome home, Kubin. And so things like that, you know. And we were going to the viewing yesterday because we had a viewing, and there was an unbelievable, beautiful rainbow right into Okanagan Lake, the lake that he loved. And it was so spectacular. Kobe and Gary were ahead of us. I'm sorry that Heidi and the twins didn't see it because they lived up in Peachland, and it was this side of Peachland. And it was just God's reassurance to us that he is with him, that Travis is with him. He's safe in the arms of Jesus. And it's God's unfailing love that's helped us get through this. Now, if any of you would like to know of that love, if you don't know of that love, come and talk to us, and we will help you to find that love, the love that passes all understanding. And in Hebrews 13:11, Jesus says, I will never leave you or forsake you. And he is our rock. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Terry. Allison, why don't you come up? Allison heads up worship in our church here, and she's been asked just to sing a couple of songs. We chose not to put the words to the songs up on the screen. We thought, listen to the songs, but if any of you know the words to the songs, feel free to sing along with her as well. Very meaningful songs, just in light of what Terry just shared with us. Thanks so much, Allison. I'd like to just read the psalm that is in the handout that you received. Probably one of the most familiar scriptures to people, and maybe not from an analogy that we're really familiar with, written from the analogy of a shepherd and a sheep, and it's written from the analogy of being one of the sheep. And so let's just hear this from the perspective of the strength and the comfort that God actually wants to bring to us in a time like this. The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Your rod and your staff protect me and comfort me. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. You honor me by anointing my head with oil. My cup overflows with blessings. Surely your goodness and unfailing love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. At this time, why don't we have Kobe, Travis's sister, come up and share some things, and then right after that, Jay St. Clair, a friend since childhood, if you want to come up right after Kobe as well. This is Kobe's husband, Gary, as well.
Hi. I have written at the top here, be brave. So that's what my brother always told me to do. I might not do as good of a job as my dad, but I'm going to be brave for my brother. So it's said that where there is deep grief, there was great love. And we've been so blessed that we had something so meaningful that it's so hard to say goodbye. Right, guys? So I could talk about the adventurous Travis and all of the thrilling things that he did in his life. And I could talk about how his bucket list was basically empty. Who can say that, right? But instead, I'm going to talk about his heart and what it was like to be his baby sister. And there's 4 words that come to mind when I think of him: protector, proud, friend, and love. Protector. From the very beginning, Travis fiercely protected me. Growing up, I knew that he was always watching out for me, and I now know that he is watching over me. He worried about me in the most sincere way. We would have long conversations about what he saw for my life, and through his eyes, I could do anything. He literally was the guy that wanted the best for everybody. He truly did. His protection included scaring basically every guy I ever dated. He made it very clear to them that his presence was always there until Gary came along. And he approved of Gary right away, and they became fast friends, and they shared a 22-year-long bond that is unbreakable. My whole life, I never had to wonder if he would protect me, because he was always there. Proud. Travis was the king of grand gestures, and he had a unique way of letting me and the other people in his life know how proud he was. When I first started my medical practice, I was very nervous and excited to take on my first patient. I had received a phone call from a woman claiming to be the secretary of a very prominent West Van lawyer. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, why does this West Van lawyer want to drive to Maple Ridge to come and see me? But okay. And I was really nervous about it. And the night before the appointment, my brother was over at my house visiting, and I was telling him how nervous I was, and he assured me that I would do great. The next day, there was a knock at the door. of my office at the appointment time, and I opened the door to find my brother standing there. And I was kind of confused, and he said, "Hi, I'm your first patient." And he had a handcrafted sign of my business logo and name on it, and a bouquet of flowers. And he had had his secretary at work set up the appointment disguised as the West Van lawyer so he could surprise me. His grand gestures. My whole life, I never had to wonder if he was proud of me. The evidence was in his actions. Friend. Growing up, I never had a sense that Travis didn't want his little sister hanging around. He included me in everything. He was such a good friend to me and would be there whenever I needed him. In my early 20s, there was a period of time where I had a broken heart from some silly boy. And at the time, Travis was living in Vancouver, and he knew that I was really sad and brokenhearted. So he drove up every single weekend for several weekends in a row to hang out with me. And he taught me how to windsurf, and we spent every weekend at 3 Mile Beach. He kept coming weekend after weekend until he knew that I was okay. A short time later, he invited me to go traveling to Central America with him. We set out on the biggest adventure of our lives as we backpacked through 3 countries and met some lifelong friends. Our bond deepened during that trip. And my whole life, I never had to wonder if he was my friend. I felt it in my heart. Love. Beneath Travis's grizzly, bare exterior was one of the most tender hearts. Travis loved deeply and was loyal to a fault. He has loved and been there for my parents and our family every single time we needed him. Travis was larger than life from the moment he was born. My parents spent several years chasing him down, but his spirit was not one that could be tamed. This spirit served him well as an adult and greatly influenced the lives of many. Travis was always there at the drop of a hat whenever my parents or I needed him. He loved my mom and dad so dearly. When Travis met Heidi, he knew from the moment he laid eyes on her that he would marry her. And when I met Heidi, I knew from that moment I finally had a sister and a lifelong best friend. Their love was evident and stood up against a lifetime of trials and remained unbreakable. And then along came Jenna and Kendra, twin girls to complete the circle, whom I love dearly. Travis dedicated his life to loving those girls fiercely and helping to architect them into 2 extraordinary women. Travis loved my boys, Dane and Cade, and he was the best uncle to them. He made it a tradition to make their birthdays very special and made sure they had endless boat rides filled with adventure. None of us have ever wondered if he loved us. The evidence is all around. Being Travis's little sister has been one of the deepest honors of my life, and I will continue to love him for all of my days. Thank you.
Subtle. I'm Jay, one of Travis's first friends, actually. We grew up just basically a few feet from each other. My heart goes out to you guys, all of you. Like always, my wife's right. I should have shortened this up quite a bit because this is tough. Anyways, Travis and I, we had any idea was a bad idea, so we did it. All of them. Like, didn't matter what it was, every idea was a bad idea. And that was the nature of our relationship. And, Kobe, you really touched on a lot of stuff about, who Travis was, and Terry with the accomplishments of Travis. I mean, they're endless. I mean, his generosity is, it's legendary. He was there for everybody. Early on in our lives, I mean, we were each other. I mean, I had my brother's keeper, and later on in life, he had, friends like Rob and Colin and stuff, and I wasn't around for that. He and I both had to go and do other stuff, and neither one of us, Terry mentioned about, the path that Travis needed to take was, it was not a linear one. It was something that, we recognized there was a box that was called school. We didn't really belong there, so we didn't go there, and it wasn't like we weren't doing stuff. It wasn't like we weren't learning. It was just a different path, and both of us traveled, much the same way. And, one of the last conversations I had with Travis, sitting on the beach in Penticton, what he was first was, your husband. And second, and by that much, was your dad. All he talked about was you guys. That was it. Like, you were his life. Work was a way to just support you guys. And he worked hard. I mean, like you said, Terry, I mean, Travis, there was no such thing as, half measures. It was just like, go all out. And trust me, I'm really refraining right now because I usually throw F-bombs in there. So, this is like, Travis he's that guy. So, one of my first memories of Travis was, we decided to go into, my dad and Terry, we went into the chemical cabinets and then poured everything into a beer bottle and took a match, because that's what you would do. And let's see what happens. And that was one of our better ideas. It went downhill from there. Both of us have scars all over our heads from all the little adventures that we had as kids. Sword fighting with linoleum, not smart. There would be weekly visits to my parents' house where Terry would be like, Jay can't play with Travis anymore. And then sure enough, and then there we go, and we'll be racing tricycles down Columbia Hill. Tricycles. Down a big hill. It ended badly every time. It was, but that was our relationship, and we're sitting around Heidi's house, and we were talking and telling stories about Travis, and we needed each other. We needed to beat the crap out of each other. We needed to be there for each other. We were the way that, now the Gen Zs and the millennials would probably, end up in jail the way we treated each other, but that was the way we worked, and I love that guy. I got to do the things in my life because of the lessons that Travis taught me. How not to quit, you just go, And Rob, skiing with you and Travis, I mean, we're 47. How the hell did we get here? We didn't think that we'd make it this far, so, and Travis pushed those limits, endlessly. Tirelessly. And, the things that he was able to accomplish in his life, he lived the life of 4 people. He got to do all of that. And he did all of that. There was nothing that he wouldn't do. Actually, that was one of the things that I could do, was manipulate him. Because if you want him to do something, tell him not to. Tell him he can't do it, and then reverse psychology, same thing. So, anything you want him to do, just tell the exact opposite, and Travis is going down that path. So, we're going to miss him a lot, and I love you guys. I'll be there for you guys no matter what, and I'm really sorry, everybody here. It's Rob, Colin, thanks for taking care of him. It's friends like you, it's what he lived for, So, anyways, that's all I got. I miss the guy.
Thank you, each of you, for sharing, each from the different perspectives, and great to hear the guy that he was and became. And Terry, the things that you shared about Travis, especially in the last year and a half, great to hear that stuff. want to speak about things just briefly from God's perspective. Does God have anything to say to us here today? Travis had a clear faith in God. He also had times of struggle, as I think we all do at times. Times like this are certainly a healthy time of reflection, because we will all die at some point. We all will go this same route at some point. And as a Christian pastor, I've been asked to just share some things from that perspective. At the same time, realizing some of you don't share that faith. And I want to speak out of respect for you as well. I certainly don't want to try to force anything on anybody here today. But like I said, does God have something to say to us here today? And I really believe that he does. I want to just briefly share from a story in the Bible, in the Gospels, about a fellow named Lazarus. And I want to read just a few verses. It's out of the Gospel of John, chapter 11. Just a few verses, not necessarily in sequence, but it says, there was a man named Lazarus who was sick. He was from a place called Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. So the sister sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. And then it says, now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So they were best friends. Jesus was best friends with these three. 2 girls and a guy, sisters and a brother. Problem was that Jesus was a long distance away, and of course you got to put yourself 2,000 years ago. And so it took a while for them to get word to him, first of all, and then it took some time for him to come. When Jesus finally got there, Lazarus had already been dead for 4 days. When Jesus arrives, people are grieving, and Jesus is actually moved to tears himself at that point. And we actually have what's actually the shortest verse in the Bible. It says, Jesus wept. He was totally moved by what was going on with his friends. Lazarus had just died, and Jesus himself literally, physically enters into just weeping with them. And so I want to say 2 main things. The first one that I just want to say to us here is, God really cares about you. The Bible says that Jesus was actually the exact representation of God. So whatever we saw Jesus do is actually what God does. Whatever Jesus said is actually what God says. And so, I don't know if we've ever thought about this. If Jesus wept, God wept. And for your situation, for each of you here today, I just really want to encourage you, God is not distant. God's not aloof. He's not just up there doing his thing. God actually feels with you today. Jesus didn't just give platitudes and pat answers. He actually feels with us today. The death of someone close to us is always difficult, and for all of us here today, it was a huge shock to hear that Travis had died, but how much more so for you as a family. And there will continue to be times of intense grief. And grief is actually a healthy part of a time like this, as much as that hurts. But God does want you to know he really cares. But he doesn't only care, he actually wants to come to your aid in some way, and wants to do that for all of us. Something really interesting happened in the story, and that was when Jesus arrived, and Martha heard that he was coming. So one of the sisters heard he was coming, and so she ran out to meet him, and she said to Jesus, Lord, if you'd been here, he wouldn't have died. Because she had seen Jesus heal sick people. And it's like, if you would have just been here, this wouldn't have happened. And Jesus says to her, your brother will rise again. And her response is, well, I know he'll rise again at the resurrection of the last day. And Jesus responds, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? Then Jesus does a very interesting thing. He actually goes to the tomb with them, and in that culture they actually had tombs that they had hewn out of rock. And so he was in this tomb with a big rock in front, and they get to the tomb, and Jesus says, "Get the rock out of the way." And they said, no, we can't do that because he's been in there for 4 days already. And no, pull it away. So they do, and then Jesus in a loud voice calls out, "Lazarus, come out." And actually comes out still bound in the grave clothes that they used in those days, and he's totally raised from the dead. And if we look in the gospel, in the very next chapter, it describes Lazarus eating at a meal with Jesus. And people are coming from all over because they've heard of this incredible thing that just happened. Now, how does that apply to us? Jesus didn't raise every dead person that died in those days, but he did do that several times for people. The way that I believe it applies for us is Jesus didn't just demonstrate that he cared, he did something about it. And I believe that the thing that God would want to say to each of us here today, he doesn't only care that Travis died. He doesn't only feel along with us today, but he actually wants to do something about it. In the middle of our grief, God, Jesus, wants to come in a way that grief doesn't need to be total despair. The Bible talks about we don't grieve as those who have no hope. At another time when Jesus was talking to his disciples, and they were going through one of those really tough times. Terry, you talked about going through various really hard times, and this was one of those times. Jesus said to his disciples, in one of those times, he says, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Do not be afraid." And so there's a very real way in which I just want to hold hope out to all of us that not only does Jesus really care, but he actually wants to be there for you. And what it takes is us going, okay, I need it, God. Help. Jesus says, if you believe, you're going to have life. Jesus described himself as life. He described himself as the resurrection. He says, I am the resurrection and the life. And so I just really want to hold hope out for all of you today that, you know what? It just takes us saying, okay, God, help. In the middle of this time, I need you. And so just the two things. He's moved by our grief. He really cares. But he also wants to do something about it. And so I just really want to encourage you to really see that for the coming days. And I know I can speak on behalf of many of us here today as well. We'll certainly be praying, especially for all of you as family, over the next days and weeks and months. Would you pray with me as we conclude our time here? Thank you, Lord Jesus, that just as we've read in your word, that you are one who totally feels along with us. You care. You have power to come alongside us if we'll simply go, yes, I need you. I need you to do that for me. And so I thank you for Travis's life. I thank you for the gift that he was to all of us in some way that are here today. And Lord, I pray especially for the family, for those closest to Travis. And I pray that all the things that we've just talked about would really be our experience over the coming days and weeks and months. Now the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Amen. This ends our service here, and it'll be followed by refreshments in the foyer. And so we encourage you and invite you to hang around and connect with each other during this time. If I could have the ushers come forward, and they'll just have the family go out first, and then if the rest of you can just follow directions of the ushers as well. Just one other thing. If any of you weren't able to sign the guest book, the family would really appreciate if you were able to do that still. Thank you. God bless you.